kari kari. Get the rope close, everybody, buddy. Taringa, taringa, taringa. Tauri Mikey, yo. Whakarongo ki te tangi o te kori mako. Kōrero flowing at the hook of force. Kaupapa relevant, kaupapa out of bounds. Kaupapa exigent, kaupapa paramount. Nā ko nā whakapiri mai ki te. Kaupapa tino whakahira hira. Whakarongo pi kari kari mai. Hare hare mai, o taringa hare hare mai. We gotta get the rope close, everybody. Get the rope close, everybody. Kani move that body. Kani move that body.
E ngā ringa, e ngā waiwai, e ngā taringa putanoi te motu, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Nau mai hoki mai, ki a tātou nei, o taringa, e whakapāhu atu ana i te pokapū, o te awa motu, otira, e whakapāhu atu ana ki a koutou, atu i te kūnenga, o te Wānanga Aotearoa, te poho, o te marae, te whare, o Ō-tāwhao. E mihi atu ana. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've been on a bit of a whakatā.
Yeah. Everyone needs a whakatā every now and again. Nō reira whakaro nui ana ki tō tātou hoa. Praone, e whakatā ana. I te korenga ona, e wāte ana i tēnei wā. Ko māua nei, ko tātou nei, e papuri tonu ana i te mauri o tō tātou kaupapa i tēnei rā. Nō reira mihi ana ki a koutou katoa. Ko te he rā whakanui, he rā nui whakahira tēnei. Well, every day is a good day. Every day is a big day. However, on this day, 40 years ago, Te Wānanga Aotearoa, well, before it was named that, the conception of a special institute, organisation, kaupapa, began its birthing. Me ki, per se. Hoino, we'll hear from that, or we'll hear more about that later on this episode. Engari, how e pehana koe, Erika?
Yeah, no, I was looking forward to coming back. Looking forward to getting back into Taringa for the year and having our amazing guests. Our first two are here already. We've got some more lined up later. So looking forward to hearing the kōrero, and I know you two can talk for days, so...
We've only got 40 minutes. We've only got 40 minutes. Hoino, ai, e mihi ana ki a kōrua. Koi ki nei au he manuhiri kōrua, oingari, he manuhiri kōrua ki te pai o Taringa. Engari, he tahi tautohito o kōrua Taringa, ki te kaupapa o Taringa. Nō rea, mihi ana ki a kōrua.
Mihi ana ki a koe.
We'll let you introduce yourself. Ka timata kia koe e hoa.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Māgaro tēnei, taho tōku māma, no hoki a ngā whakapaukara ki a hau, tatu atu ki a tūwhare toa, te iwi, whakawhiti atu ki ngā mautere e mene maira, ko Viti tērā, Fiji, Nisa Bulavanaka. E mihi ana ki a koutou.
Kia ora, Māgi.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Ko Kaiwhiri, tōku maunga, ko Taff, te awa, ko Welsh, te hapu, ko Celts, te iwi,
tēnā koe.
Ko David, Rawiri, Mr. Lewis, taku ingoa. I'm very happy to be here. I started with the Wānanga in 1990, and I retired 5.5 years ago. And I've had the great honour to have spent 29 years of my life working for Te Wānanga Aotearoa. Wow. So it's great to be here.
Excellent.
Sure.
Great to be here. Don't worry, well, cars were around in 1990. They had TV, but phones were actually stuck to the wall at home. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. 1990, yeah. And that's great. That's what we want to hear. That's koina tāku i hiha nei ki te rongo, i tō kōroa wā ki te kaupapa. It'd be great to hear, because I think about 40 years, there have been so many people that have been instrumental in the establishment, you know, the great architects of Te Wānanga Aotearoa.
Yeah.
Dr. Runga Wetere. He tākuta koe? Well, you just got a flu. And Boy Mangu. And these are the names I can remember right now. But tell me, Mr. Lewis, we'll start with you, your time. How did you get
pulled in?
How did a Welshman all the way from Kaiwhili, from Wales, gets stuck. Well,
Trapped.
Once you're in the Wānanga, you never leave.
Into Wānanga.
Sort of like kidnapped. And you know, there's that Stockholm syndrome where you start to like the people who kidnapped you. My very, very first involvement would have been with this building when Rongo, he was on the board of governors in those days of Te Wānanga College, and he'd been on the discipline committee, and he was seeing too many Māori kids coming up. And so he talked to the Māori teacher, Huru Boy Mangu, and they decided that what was needed was a Māori centre within the school to help with the situation. And so they launched the idea of building this marae. And that was in the early 1980s. Now, I know nowadays New Zealand is a home of liberal understanding and peace and understanding and peace and love and kindness. But in those days, Te Aotearoa wasn't that liberated a place, and it ran into an awful lot of opposition. However, Rongo being Rongo, and I think Evie mentioned that this morning at her speech this morning, if you tell Rongo you can't do something, he went ahead and he did it. So he put together various work schemes which were available in the 1980s, and I think we'll hear later on about the wonderful group that carved the whare here. And I and my wife were part of a group of people who donated money. I think one of the carvings there is technically got our name across the top of it.
Sure.
Oh, cute.
So we did. So that's how I originally got involved. But the moment I was the kidnapping took place was in 1990. At the end of 1990, I was teaching at Te Aotearoa Intermediate School, and I had been using some accelerated learning techniques, it was called in those days, with the teaching. And Rongo's wife had heard that I was doing that, and she snitched on me to Rongo, and he approached me when I was ordering some fish and chips in town. And he said, "You know all about accelerated learning, don't you?" And it was the end of term, so I was very relaxed, and I said, "Yeah, no problem." And so he said, "Right, I want you to come down to the Aotearoa Institute." That was what it was called in those days. It was a private training establishment, PTE, and I want you to help put together an accelerated learning Te Reo Māori program. And I said, "Well, I don't. I'm from Wales in the United Kingdom. I don't speak Māori or anything." And he said, "Doesn't matter. I've got plenty of people who do that. I'll work with you." And so I did come down here, and I got together with Māori Panapa and Alana Collette and Jack and Souvenir Tamaki. And we worked on what Souvenir called Ako Whakatere, which was a methodology which we designed to help try and teach Te Reo Māori to as many people as possible. And that's how I got eventually completely drawn into the Wānanga. And by about 1993 or so, by that time I had the official title of Education Manager. And we were involved with the application to get the Wānanga Status. I think it was the 1999 or 1989 Act, Education Act, had allowed for the establishment of Wānanga, which would have the same legal status as universities, polytechnics and colleges of education. And what that meant was that we'd have that authority, that status, and also access to the EFS funding, which our students. Up until that time, our students were very much part of employment skills. I think they're called PP, might have been in those days, schemes. The problem with them was that the funding for them only lasted as long as the program lasted. So if you had an 18-week program, they were funded for that, and then nothing. So that was all right for most of the year, except when you got to Christmas time, when there was nothing. There was nothing, so Rongo was faced with the problem that staff could possibly be laid off during the Christmas period. So we had to find ingenious ways of keeping that financial situation running. Under the F system, you've got a vastly different financial situation. And so once we got the Wānanga status, which was decided in this building, the NZQA brought together kaumātua from all around the country, and they met in here, and they eventually decided that, yes, the Aotearoa Institute could become Te Wānanga Aotearoa. And we became brothers and sisters with Te Wānanga Awa Nuiarangi and Te Wānanga o Raukawa. And so we were the three Wānanga official with the same status as universities, polytechnics and colleges of education. And that's how we got started. And that's how I got started and was involved in the one... Yeah, trapped here.
Held captive
for 29 years. Every time I tried to leave, they threatened my mother and stuff like that.
So you're a POW, a prisoner of Wānanga.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, and I did many, many, many jobs. It wasn't just those things. And the idea basically was to move on every 2 years. That way I avoided a performance appraisal. Because no one knew what job I was actually supposed to be doing. So I used to move on from one thing to the other. And the last few years, maybe 15 years of my life at the Wānanga, I was involved in the what was the home-based learning section, which became known as Open Wānanga. And I did various jobs for them, and we even invented a ako whakateri English language for second English language for speakers of other languages, which we delivered in Hamilton and all across Auckland. And we did that, and we had vast numbers of different programs being run through the Open Wānanga, which was the home-based learning model. It's not like the traditional distance learning model where the tutors send out the material, you do the work at home, and then you send it back to the tutor. What Open Wānanga did was you sent out the material in kite, and then everyone was visited by a kaitiaki in their home, or if they didn't want to meet in their home, some place where they could meet, and then they're happy meeting, and they went through the material, and the kaitiaki would quite often take the assessment. So, and that, I don't know whether, I think that model is still in place here now. The Open Wānanga ceased to exist as a separate entity in the 2015, something like that.
15,
yeah. And we moved into the main body down in the head office, and that's where we ran from there. So,
wasn't that one of your first roles? No?
Yeah.
yes.
Weren't you
Yes.
My first role was I was contracted to clean Pōkuru Road up for the 10th anniversary of Open Wānanga with Willie Wetere. And then, later on, a few years after, they couldn't get rid of me.
Hey.
what? As a photographer? Oh my God, didn't tell me that.
But that's the beauty of it. You know what you said, Mr. Lewis, David Lewis said, you get brought into the kaupapa, and there's actually room for you to grow and find what it is that you can do, want to do, as long as your koha is towards the kaupapa. You know, that's the beauty of it. It's a bit similar to yours.
Yeah.
What's your experience, Maggie?
Wow. Yeah, I was reflecting this morning during Evie's kōrero, but also yesterday. So yesterday was our day.
Was the day?
Yeah, the day.
It was a Sunday.
Day.
Some of us have
Sunday.
lawns to mow.
But yeah, I think I was 22 when I walked in through those doors. About 100 kgs lighter, I say. But it was it's definitely a moment that transformed my life. But, you know, touching on what Mr. Lewis talked about, Taumatu, I mean, growing up in Taumatu, very different type of energy, very much a pioneer town that Auntie May would talk about. And so growing up in Taumatu, very little role models. I think here we had two very huge institutions, which was Waikeria, Tokanui.
Tokanui, yeah.
We're at the seat of Raupatu, and I think for me, growing up as Māori, particularly in this school, this wharenui was probably the only kind of space where it felt familiar. And so growing up in Taumatu, I think it was Waipa Kukuri Arts Centre back then, it was quite a difficult place to kind of see the beacons of leadership, of mentorship, because at that time the narrative, particularly in Taumatu, was, Waipa Kukuri, don't really go down there, and then, these the programs down there, it's just to hold space. So the narrative was negative around what is now Te Wānanga Aotearoa. And so growing up, the trajectory was always being, go to the university, get a degree, kei reira, te taumata, teitei. And so my whole family, it was around that narrative as well. But I went to Europe, did the OE, saw all those greats and Florence and Michelangelo, and then came back. And I knew I really wanted to do arts, visual arts, and so I was vying for Auckland University, for Elam, for all these art schools in Auckland, and then 1 minute I'm in underneath the Eiffel Tower, and then the next minute I'm just in the backyard in a camper van in Kiki, wondering about my future. And then Mum said, "Look, daughter, go down to the Kukuri Arts Centre, or at that time it was Te Wānanga Aotearoa, and go see Auntie Ma. She's got an arts program and they're doing amazing things." And so that, the prejudices that are built into our kids in rangatahi, you sort of just I was just like, this is not where I really want to learn arts. And then when I got over myself and went through those doors, and I went through those doors, I still see it, and Auntie Ma was there setting up an exhibition with Paul Anderson, Hiria Anderson, Lorraine Anderson, whanui, and she just looked at me and she said, "Kia ora, bub." And I remember Auntie Ma when they did Ako Whakatiri at Taumatu Intermediate. So that's 12-year-old Margie, 22-year-old Margie, walking through those doors, and in Apakura, our green carpet, we had the green carpet then, which was probably second, third-hand carpet, which is part of the story of our beautiful Wānanga. And so, pretty much wrapped myself around her legs and didn't let go. So the walking in as a tauira, I soon then found that those greats like Michelangelo, we had our own. We had uenuku, we had all these taonga tukuiho from Te Māori, and we also had the arts program that actually helped us build our cultural capability and understanding of ourselves. So as tauira, it was fun, I've still got my jacket on. I've got a burn mark down here from when Lorraine let us, I don't know if she actually knew, she was our campus manager then, but we had Bunsen burners down the back in our studio. And we had decided we want to enter into support the Te Aomatu Museum. They had a number 8 wire exhibition. And so Auntie Mai was really encouraging of supporting community events and supporting kaupapa like the museum that celebrates our culture and heritage. But I reached over the table, and then this flame flew up around here, and I just hear Hiri Anderson, who was my kayaku, was Maggie, you're on fire. So I've got my mark here, and I'm quite happy that I actually fit it this morning. So good memories.
Well, it must have been a heated debate then after that.
I don't know. I think Lorraine found out, maybe some HR, health and safety.
Well, pai tira.
You mentioned when you first came into the Wānanga, the narrative wasn't very positive.
No.
What do you think were some things over the years that have contributed to the change of the narrative now? I feel like it's a very positive place.
Yeah, totally. I think Mr. Lewis talked about it this morning that it was a cultural revolution, but an educational one. I mean, Kingi Wetere would say, you know, Te Wānanga Aotearoa is an institution, it's a movement. And I think the movement of educating our people then started educating our hearts and our minds to kind of open up. And all of a sudden, there were all these, this plethora of amazing, innovative programs. So I was thinking about my mum who has like 7 or 8 certificates. But when you think about it, our people have been starved of this kind of opportunity around cultural building, narratives, our pūrākau, our atua, our tikanga, reo. And so for my mum's generation is very much that. So when the Wānanga came through with all these te reo Māori, mahi ora, it was really dynamic, you know. And so all of a sudden, the impact in a whānau was a ripple effect. So Auntie would always talk about, and I believe this, is that you transform an individual through the kaupapa of Te Wānanga Aotearoa. You transform a family, transforming a family, you transform communities, and then all of a sudden the nation. And I believe that that's what occurred here. And so the positive narratives change through experience. Through experiencing it, through understanding, is this what it's like to be in karakia? Is this what it's like to have waiata every week, you know?
Yep.
Kare kore, you were Māori, but also for everyone else. And the unity around that, the inclusion was really important. And it was a really beautiful environment in Apakura for my 2 to 3 years. And then Crown occupation happened, which is another space. So Wānanga has been through a lot of challenges, not just monetary, but, you know, there's also been those spaces of challenge that our leaders have taken up and, you know, faced that, fight fire with fire.
Yeah, that's good.
That
It
kind of
talks
stuff.
about social impact day.
Yeah.
Our kura taiurungi, Evie O'Brien, mentioned this morning a stat of 1 million. 1 million people throughout 40 years of Te Wānanga Aotearoa have been involved as tauira or somewhat within Te Wānanga Aotearoa. So we talk about social impact. Is that right, Mr. Lewis?
I can't prove this, but it seems to me that if you have 300,000 people enroll, which we were talking to the numbers people this morning, and then you have that effect on their whānau around them, all that around them. So you're looking at, say, maybe directly 1 million people within a population of only 5 million. So a fifth of the population has been affected directly by Te Wānanga Aotearoa. And on top of that, of course, we've got our brothers and sisters of the revolution in Awanui, Rangi and Raukawa. So that, again, adds to... Now, the number of people who are being exposed to kaupapa Māori, Te Ao Māori, and that's Māori and non-Māori who've all been involved in the Wānanga, that's huge. And it's a silent cultural revolution because no one noticed it was happening. No one said, let's cause a revolution and enroll 300,000 people.
Let's boo a dawn ceremony.
Yeah, let's do that. But this has just happened. And I think if we have a look at the recent troubles with the Treaty Principles Bill and the response was unbelievably huge. I mean, the number of people, who put submissions in, let alone the number of people who walked on in the protest to Parliament. And there's a vast number of people, Māori and non-Māori, who don't really understand what David Seymour was going on about. It's natural. It's a natural part of Aotearoa, New Zealand. And that's because we are everywhere. We are everywhere. The Wānangas are, plural, are everywhere within Aotearoa. And they're welcoming people in. Speaking as a Welshman who came to New Zealand in 1971 or 2, so long ago, I don't remember. In those days, there was sails on the ships, and it took a long time to get here. Anyway.
Not the sales you got online and the actual sales.
The actual sales. But when I got here, I knew nothing at all about Māori at all. My first experience was when I started teaching at the intermediate school in the late 70s. And then when Rongo enlisted me, what I was... it wasn't something that you really noticed as, it just... I think Evie mentioned it this morning. The love came round you. And nobody said, oh, you Pākehā coming here with your stupid accelerated learning ideas. Māori said, well, let's have a look at that and see, what can we take from that? What can we do use it? How can we use it? How can we use it? And the development, we went through the 90s when we were quite a small organisation, and in the early 2000s, there was different Te Wānanga Marae, there was Maki Ora, there was Māori Ora, and then there was the explosion right across the country, big campuses, big numbers, and that was done with love. And it's an unconditional love, and it's open love, and it's a caring love, and it's accepting. And so that's why I believe that Te Wānanga Aotearoa and our brothers and sisters have caused a very silent but very significant cultural revolution right across the whole of Aotearoa. And even if we're getting some pushback now from people who don't seem to understand, that doesn't matter, because it's too deep. A fifth of the population has had something to do with Te Wānanga Aotearoa. A fifth of the population has had something to do with Te Ao Māori, Kaupapa Māori, and that's got to have had a massive effect. So I'm just very grateful that I was allowed to take part.
And kidnapped.
Yeah, take part. And I must say,
I was able eventually to dig a hole and get out. 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Lucky to
And
have
it's not
you.
to say, it has to be said, Te Wānanga Aotearoa is apolitical, but the responsibility Te Wānanga Aotearoa has, and it says in our philosophies, to provide holistic educational opportunities of the highest quality for Māori, for peoples of Aotearoa and the world. And from that has created, like you said, informed that social conscience. So they can make informed decisions about how they want to live their life, how their kids want to live their life, how their mokopuna want to live their life. And things like the impact, say, quick social impact about, open wānanga, home-based learning. You'll be if you're tauira at the moment.
Yeah.
It wasn't about having you, yes, it was about giving you learning opportunities, but actually bringing it into home. A lot of our tauira, a lot of our people are second chance learners. And I reckon that's where a lot of the stigma comes from, like, oh, you didn't do too well at the mainstream, bro. You can go to the Wānanga, get the, get the side thing. Yeah. But actual, learning, there are more than one chance. There are more than one chances, or more chances in learning. Yeah. So it's all right if you don't get the first time. There's a second chance. There's another chance of learning. So going back to the, say, social impacts of things like home-based learning is some of those kete, so resources, and those who have been a part of those programs. So for some households, those were the first books that were seen. That's what it was about. It was transformation, putting things in front of them, or allowing environments for learning and what they're capable of. Yeah. So yes, KPIs and qualifications, yes. Yeah. However, social transformation, conscious transformation, resourcing, reactivation, re-indigenization, all those isms and schisms and Asians and all that. But I want to quickly... Oh, that's a cool song. We haven't got the rights to it, though. We don't know the rights to it. You talked about 1993 getting Wānanga Status. And it wasn't like, hey, you opened your Weetbooks box and there was a card in there saying you got Wānanga Status. Now, do you remember that time? I remember Buck Nin putting in, 6 years worth of submissions?
Oh, wow.
Do you remember that time? Yeah, it wasn't no, harei te wākei te pāka e wa. Do you remember those times?
Yeah, well, we had to, because it was going to be, the accreditation was going to come through NZQA, we had to do all the paperwork, dance, and all the, I've even forgotten what it's called now, but you had to have all these systems to prove that you could do what you said you were going to do. So if you said you were going to deliver this sort of quality in education, did you have the systems in place to deliver it? Did you have the backup systems in place? If you said you were going to deliver a whakaaro program in Māngani, have you got a building? Is the building safe? Have you got qualified kayako to do it? Have you got all the support around the tauira? Have you got all those things? And you had to be able to lay that out on paper initially. That's what Buck Nim was, when I got to be the education manager, I was so grateful that he'd written all this stuff, because I didn't really know how to go about it initially, and in facing with the people from NZQA, they would often come in and start talking about things that performance criteria and and I go, we can do that, but it was because Buck had written it all up. I could look back at it, read through it, and understand it, and then adapt it to 1993. And so we had the team that did all the paperwork for it, had to get all that going, had to all be there, established, and it had to be able to be seen to being operational. And so that's the place we got to, and that's when we were visited for the big accreditation by NZQA and a large group of kaumata who came and discussed the whole thing, and eventually, it was after 3 or 4 days, I think it took 3 days, the accreditation was given.
Kia ora.
But it was this...
He was using words like holistic, which was quite before, like if you think about the period of the 90s.
Yeah, holistic's a buzzword now.
Buzzword
Holistic
now.
then, yeah.
Engari, back then, those words were very, high energy. And I think, when I think of back then in that time, and this whare with Paki Harrison, Henry Moore Harrison, back that this wānanga has been built by our tohunga, by those that are that have contributed to a wider, not just within the space of rākau, but beyond this whare.
The vice chancellors of Te Ao
the
Māori
ripple
in terms
effect.
of,
And Buck, very much one of our leaders for Māori contemporary arts. And so, there's nowhere else that I could probably say, hand on heart, that Te Wānanga Aotearoa was built out of the arts, built out of that philosophy of human generosity for karo nui. So there's no other institution that I could say that could have that kind of history back, and people that have put their money towards a whakairo, going without maybe pay over Christmas because the funding's run out. So our teachers, Auntie Mawaros, often talk about, tai timu, tai pari, it would be, without for a while.
4 desks, 1 pencil.
What, 4 desks, 1 pencil? Break it in half, sharpen it. And so
even
that
the mortgaging of homes, Even the mortgaging of homes. The amount of whānau that remortgage their homes.
Who does that? people that believe in a vision and that needs, you know, and I was one of those kids in 1990 sort of thinking that, you know, the centre of mātauranga, well, I wouldn't say mātauranga, centre of knowledge was within our universities, and then just coming through those doors flipped it, and have been able to, you know, love my career, my mahi in the arts since then, and very in debt to Mr. Lewis and those that, you know, have put, but it's also, it's employed our families. You know, at one stage my mum was employed in the same house, and my auntie was studying with me alongside me, so quite a transformational kind of experience around what our programs provide. And the books in the home.
We're a Wānanga whānau. I never heard about Te Wānanga until my mother got a gig with someone, Sue Cullen in Te Wānanga in 2000, and I was a Jaffa. I was like, Te Wānanga, where's that? Where's that? There must be a suburb. That must be South Auckland. I'm never going to leave Auckland.
South.
I'm going to leave Tamaki 25 years later. But yeah, because it was a bustling metropolis of reinvigoration with education. We can go on for a while. These guys were saying, I don't know what to talk about. I said, it won't take much. But I want to leave some time for the crowd, for our whānau here. If there are any pātai, any kōrero. Anyone have any pātai? Please, one at a time. One at a time, please. One at a time. Kia ora.
I was listening to Bucknin, and another one that came to my mind was from Tainui, but he was living in Ōtāwhao. He was a minister.
Ngāpi Waka?
Ngāpi Waka, yeah.
For us as well as Aotearoa.
Yeah, kia ora.
Just wondering what some highlights for what he's achieved for us.
Yeah, kia ora. So yeah, for those at home, a question from one of our kai pātai. The impact Ngāpi Waka made, which is very, is a name that should be mentioned. Your time with Ngāpi, I was actually after Ngāpi Waka, but talked about a lot. Been a minister also, but hakas, kapahaka, and just pushing people along. But there was quite a few of them like that.
I was fortunate enough. So when I finished my arts and then I finished my degree in Hamilton, Kingi reached out, and this is post Crown 2005 Te Anga Whakamua, and by that time Tauira had done a little bit of mahi to advocate for Te Wānanga Aotearoa. So Kingi reached out and he wanted to create a committee. And on that particular committee, he reached out to me because he wanted to create an inventory of the artwork. Because one of the things about the explosion was to ensure that the Wānanga exemplified its unique character through ngā toi Māori, whakairo. So that mahi, you know, Te Wānanga Aotearoa was built on out of rākau, koina te ki, rongo wetere. But on that was Koro Ngāpi, and he was amazing man, cheeky, witty. Sometimes, you know, could watch him in karakia, what would come out of his mouth, and watch Auntie Ma with her eyes. Sometimes he would get in trouble, you know. But he was so dynamic. And I believe what Rongo actually did was he sourced people in the community that were doing things for our people like Koro Ngāpi. He was already he was already a leader in his community in Rotorua, you know, but through him he was able to mobilise, and I think our first site was Taiwere down there, and he was able to mobilise our community, and so he had people like Koro Ngāpi there, Koro Tui Adams as well, Eru Nikora, Koro Eru Nikora, I worked with him. So I was very fortunate to come into a space where we had those leaders, and I remember being at that hui. Bentham called at 8 o'clock in the morning before the day started, and just being at the table, sort of just, it's like a little kid, little buckwheat at the table of these massive, beautiful people. And Koro Napi, I remember he taught us, I think it was Kia Ngāwari, the hymn, as a form of protest. So he had a lot to do. Not a form of protest, but the first protest, 98, he led the kapa fight, down in Parliament in the cold rain, and Katie talks about that. Puppy was there, Cheryl, Colette, and then the second time in, Koronapi was very much, a wonderful man that would come in and he would take a session for us. And so I think those are the kind of the learnings and the teachings. Like, it wasn't just, we're going to go into class and we're going to learn, this kind of idea of learning linear, that we get taught in mainstream. It's this is multi-dimensional thread. So Koronapi's coming in. And these were just, those were amazing leaders of their time. And, and there's so many, I just think of Whaia Haneta, Nan, she was amazing. They all have characters that brought a really beautiful energy to a learning environment. Nan, hello, darling, give me a kiss. They can still see her. Then she'll bring you and sit you down, and you had to have a kai. Like, that's an old.
Was this before Kahui Amorangi, or was that what happened after? Kahui Amorangi was explain Kahui Amorangi, sort of the council of kaumātua that was able to inform the conscience of Te Wānanga Aotearoa via mātauranga Māori, tau Māori.
Yeah, they had, Ati Rovina, Mania Poto. They were just, that Kahui Amorangi was quite dynamic. Our kaumātua, awesome. Dynamic, I would say. And they would come in and they would feed into the strategy or into the ideas. And I think, those strategies aren't new to Te Ao Māori. With Wānanga, 2-3 days on a kaupapa kofo. So it's just, those methodologies aren't new. I think, so by bringing Kahui Amorangi, we were able to kind of share, what's happening in Whirikoka, what's happening in Paitokero, what's happening, and sometimes they were little but big enough to be able to see a gap through the window for us to create a program of some sort. But they were dynamic hui, they were talking about 60, 70 of our kaumata that would come in and see each other, and it would be a buzz. Sometimes it would take a little while to kind of get into the flow.
Here's the agenda then. First,
Rachel Parau, remember the sister Rachel? Takutua Kana, we all had to herd them into the room. Come on. So the dynamic time. So this is at the peak, at the peak around about 2005. And then the Crown occupation happened, which was another challenge that I think that, we overcame. And that was primarily around, from 1,000 in 1999, odd students to 60,000 by 2005. That quiet revolution was all of a sudden in the face. And so I think that's where the contribution of tauira like myself were well, hold on, this is quite right. What the media was saying and the political pressures of that time. So, and we've overcome that. We're 40 years. Another 40 years and more.
Another 40 years on. But we can't sit here all for another 40 years.
No.
We got to live it and create it.
Tika.
But just to wrap up, I want to ask for your closing thoughts. O whakaaro wawata o Te Wānanga Aotearoa. Your aspirations or what you'd like to see in another 40 years from Te Wānanga Aotearoa. Mr. Lewis?
I know when an organisation is 40 years old, and if you've lived through the early years of it, you've had a different experience to what it is now. But I think that if we can keep the sense of being different, being innovative, and being really inclusive of Māori and non-Māori, and reaching out and keeping that feeling, that sense of open-hearted love for everybody, and to bring them in, and that if that's the way the Wānanga behaves to the world, offers to the world, it will go on causing shimmers and changes in Aotearoa and the world. You know, if we look at the world at the moment, it's a bit chaotic, and as a person who was foolish enough to believe that all you need is love, I've always said that, well, yeah, all we need is love. And people say, oh, well, no, that's not going to work. And my argument is, yes, it does if you try it. And people don't try it for very long, you know. People really don't try it. So you've got great leaders and philosophers from Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad and people all around the world from different cultures and ethnicities. And it's always there. Someone's always saying, love everybody. Be open. And I know sometimes when I was in meetings with Rongo, it was difficult to feel the love.
Well, it has many faces. Love has many phases.
Because particularly if you were saying, you know what, I don't think we can do that. And he was open, and he was, look at the art, the beauty around. Look at the campuses. The campuses were always beautiful places to be. And it was always open. And there was open to everyone. So to keep for the next 40 years, the next 140 years, for the Wānanga to keep that openness and to push that out into, or not push it out, just open out to the world, out to people to come, and make so people can come in and feel the Aotearoa, and they can feel included. That would seem to me to be somewhere we could go. Whether that's, I mean, I believe all you need is love, so I'm a bit of a fool. So, but whether that's something that's easy to do, most probably not. But if you believe in it, it's worth doing.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Maggie?
Hippie, man. Hippie.
Well, I think at 40 years we're intergenerational now, you know. I think of Arana, and then you've got Papi, who's Cheryl, Colette, and now we've got Maiterangi.
Yeah.
You know, so we've got, it's
and
an
we've got Napi's moko, him.
Yeah, Napi's moko.
Yeah.
So we're intergenerational, and so that whole space of growing, you know, he aro ha whakatō, he aro ha whakapua wai, tika ana. And I just think that for our wānanga to be able to be resilient, be innovative, look for the gap. Ke whi te hina tore. You know, look for the gap, look for recentering the person in the learning environment. Ko te mea, you know, kia Māori ai, because being Māori is about being inclusive and stretching that out. And I think that a lot of, not just myself, a lot of our tauira, you know, our best ambassadors are our graduates. And influencing those minds and hearts comes from a puna, you know, and Uncle Kiriti's one of those as well, those teachers. And so for me, I think Te Wānanga Aotearoa me tūtonu, aha ko te aha, and yeah, that difference is really important, you know, don't toe the line, create the line, that kind of stuff.
Cross the line.
You cross the line. If you have to cross it, cross it.
Cross the line, yeah.
But yeah, I just think that Te Wānanga Aotearoa is a magnificent, wonderful gift. You know, nā Ngāti Maniapoto. You know, mihi ana kia koutou. And those leaders of the time, Te Araki Nui, Māori Marsden, that were all here to āhei, te whakai, me tūtonu te Wānanga Aotearoa. You know, so kia koutou, it isn't the wā, te rereke tērā, ko te Wānanga Aotearoa te ingoa. And there was a lot of work to get that name, and there's a lot of people that sacrificed their Christmas leave pays, pencils, to get that name. But you know, it's important that we don't forget that this wānanga was built with real hands, as Betha would say. Real hands, not this philosophy that fell out of the sky by some philanthropists or doctors that study culture. E hara. It was made by people, real people that saw the need of our people. So, yeah. Beautiful. So for me, yeah, I don't know if that answered it, but I feel like that we have much more to do. So much more to do. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Whakaaro, Erica?
Oh, I actually was thinking about something before. Can't remember what you said, Margie, but I heard this kōrero ages ago from one of our really inspiring lawyers down the coast, and she was talking about the 101 on how to colonise a people, like back in when they were going around with that Rex Pontiff thing. And one of the guidelines was that you attack the arts first. So how powerful it is that the wānanga has kind of re-indigenised spaces and was built out of the arts into this wonderful machine that it is today.
Well, he tika tērā, ko te toi, koinei, well, ko tāne whakapiripiri wāhi whakairinga kōrero ai, these are our repositories. Yeah. I have to check every time I say that. One time I said, this is the suppository of knowledge. So, our arts are, you know, before Western literacy and numeracy, our arts are our literacy and numeracy.
Well, it's a vernacular.
It's a vernacular. Our kōrero are embedded in that. So, yeah. And we'll have more on that in our next episode. Hoino, me whakakapi aki konei. Mihi ana kia kōrua.
Me ana kia kōrua.
Ko rangatira nei taringa i a kōrua. Tai ana kia koutou ko tau mai. Koutou, whakarongo mai nā, e mihi ana kia koutou katoa, ka whakaere ake te pūtea whakanako o te kaupapa o te kōrero, a ki te tāhuhu nui o Ō-tāwhao e tūtū mai ana, kia wātea i te henengaro, te tinana, me te whakaaro, kia tauho mai nei ngā manaakitanga kia tātou. Hui e, tai ki e. Tēnā koutou.
Tēnā koutou.
Tēnā koutou.
amo ake ai au I taku toki, kia tū te ngangana, he toki nā wai, he toki nā pākariki, I tuaina ai I tāna rākau, I hahau ai I tōna whare, o Ō-tāwhao e tūtū nei. Koia tēnei ko Taringa, whakapāhu atu ana anō.
Anō.
Kia koutou, atu I te pokapū, o te awa matu. You real fellas know what those are. E atu anō I te kuninga, te whare nei o Ō-tāwhao. E whakanui ana I ngā tau whātekau o te Wānanga o Aotearoa. E mihi atu ana kia koutou katoa. Ngai Taringa ko hoki mai nei. Tēnā koe, Erika?
Tēnā koe te puaheiri.
It's been a while. It's been about 15 minutes.
It's been about 15 minutes.
Now we're on 349, episode 349. E mihi atu ana kia koutou katoa. Tai ana, ki o a tātou manuhiri. Ko tai mai nei. Who are these young handsome fellas that we got off the corners over in Te Wānanga? E mihi ana kia koutou katoa ko tai mai nei. Just for introductory sake, ka timata kia koe e hoa. Introduce yourself. No hea koe. Hea tō mai.
My name's Herbie Tiri. I'm from Whānanga, Te Kaha.
Oh, Teddy, yeah.
We're all activists down there, so you get used to it.
I was just driving around your fella's hood the other day at Maungaroa.
Yeah. It's only a little place, but yeah, we're from Whānanga, tū whare tō. Ka pai.
Kia ora, Herbie.
Kia ora, I'm Darren Hickey. I'm a local from here. I'm from Pakamarama. And I've been here all my life.
Kia ora, Darren.
A tapatapa tū ki te whaiao ki te ao marama haumi e hui e tai ki e. A kua ai ko tainui te waka Ngāti Mani Putua TV, Kakipuki te maunga, Waipā te awa, te kōpua te marae Ngāti Uni te hapu. E whānau mai ki tukuti e noho ana nai nei ki Kirikiriro, ko Pine a.k.a. Donald Campbell, taku ingoa no reira tēnā koutou.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou. Pine, rangatira tēnā ingoa I te ao whakairo e hoa. No reira, he koina te take, ko tai mai e nei, ringa whao, ringa whiro, ki te whakairo. We're here to talk today about understanding what it took, or, your experiences being a part of.
These were some of the very first students.
Very first students of Te Wānanga Aotearoa.
We were the first.
We were the first students.
Ngā kinipiki of Te Wānanga Aotearoa, but also under the guise, the tutelage, the wisdom of people like Pakariki Harrison, Hinumua Harrison, Mera, Mōhio o Te Wā. So we'll start there. How did you get involved in starting or carving Ō-tāwhao?
When I first come here, I moved in from Te Kaha. Was on the dole, and then they put us on this PEP scheme that we started this whole thing off at, it started off at a PEP, and then we went to the kōkiri, and then that was my first couple of months here, and then we went into the, pulled the factory down. We were wreckers, and just started from there, and then we started our carving side of it. That was massive too, bro.
Yeah, because we moved around a bit, eh?
Yeah.
So when you first came in as students, what were you learning?
How to break down a building. We were wreckers.
The demo team.
Yeah, we pulled the old factory down there just past the kōkiri then.
Yeah, tell us about that. Why did you pull that? What was so, the dairy factory, eh?
Yeah, it was the dairy factory, yeah. I think Paki and Rungu and them got the contract to pull it down, and then they could, whatever they used in it, they wanted, they could use it for the kōkiri back in then, and all the framing work, all the big steels.
Yeah, because we had the army crew in helping us too.
Yeah, there's a story of Rongo ringing up a mate or someone up at the Papakura Army base camp say, hey, you know, your fella's army hasn't got a great history with us down here and around Ōrākau. So you owe us a favour. Sounds about right. Brought them down, helped you fellas.
Yeah, they weren't the wreckers though, we were. They were just our cooks, bro.
They were the cooks, they just did the cooks.
Yeah, they put these big humongous steamers down. And they cooked us breakfast, lunch and tea, bro.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Caterers.
Yeah. So he's doing catering?
So we did everything, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 hot feeds a day.
3 hot feeds. That's why he's got a bigger puki than me.
You were last in line, though, weren't you?
Yeah, always last. Yeah, behind these two. But it started off with the PP scheme, you know, that's how we started. But I think Herbie, you know, his starts from the court. Starts from the court.
Basketball, tennis. Basketball, tennis court. So
hockey.
you can play tennis, eh?
Hockey.
Yeah, not the tennis court, but Paki used to pick him up from the court and, you know, used to uffy some of us that sort of ended up in that place, and Paki would always end up there bringing them out or getting them on bail. So, you know, just the little things Paki did for us, I think was amazing. For me, I saw him 15 years later after he left Te Aomutu down in Te Wānanga when we were at a moko papa down there, and he pulled me up into the room and he said, I'll have a chat with you. So they remembered me, him and Mac Bell.
Kia ora.
So Mac Bell, they remember this boy with his hands in his pocket. So they were always referring, so they had little stories about us, so that was me. And Mac says, oh, look at that boy, he's got his hands in his pocket, he's no good. And Paki would say, no, he'll come right. Second week was the same thing, Mac getting hoha now. And the third week, Mac was hoha, no, I had enough of this fella. We send him down the road and Paki goes, no, he'll come right. And then the fourth week he says that, he went to Paki, he says, Paki, look at him, he's actually doing something. You know, so must have saw me doing some mahi, you know. But I just felt back in those days, you know, without tituing, I used to put my hands in my pocket. That was my whakaaro around that. You know, sometimes we'll finish what we're doing and just, you know, I'd always gravitate over to Paki, you know, just watching him carve, you know, because I'm in that realm now, and I suppose what I heard from outside of that shed was all the negative stuff, and all what I heard inside that shed was all positive stuff about how clever Māori were, you know. It sort of shined a different light on how I was perceiving myself as well. You know, so yeah, I felt that, you know, I connected with something bigger than me.
Kia ora.
Growing up in a Pākehā world, you know, but not accepting being Māori, you know, I felt this pull towards, you know, an understanding of who I am was through what Paki and Horongo created for us young fellas, you know, they believed they had fallen through the crack. I know these two had, but I was sort of trying to find my way.
You were the shining light for them.
I was.
You were the inspo,
I was an exception to the rule, yeah. So, I loved that, and especially that. And just from our last speakers and hearing the narratives had changed, you know, we were known as the Māoris of Te Aomutu. Oh, look, here comes those Māoris, because there was quite a lot of us, you know, even up to 30, you know, one time they, especially when, you know, after a few years, that lot of school leavers ended up coming to us, and so yeah, we were big, you know, but still not understanding, you know, the tau kumikumi that was happening between us and us, you know, our own, you know, saying those same things, and so yeah, we gravitated to the pubs. You know, we were in force. We played a lot of sports force teams here in Te Aomutu and Kiki. So yeah, we were out there, and a lot of the whānau, you know, have also ended up. So they talk about the millions that have participated in a program here at Te Wānanga Aotearoa. You know, these are some of the fellows that were calling us the Māoris. So it's really awesome to see, you know, it sort of touches the ngākau of the transformation of what Rongo and Boimangu had done, you know, for the likes of us and others. You know, so,
Yeah, kia ora. It's good that you mentioned Mac Bell because, you know, we're still at Te Wānanga College and school's still going on, so his name rings a bell. Just for those at home, we're in the middle of class time, so it's the first day back at Tura for some in term 2, and the bell's still going off. Some of us, we run when the bell goes, we run the other way. But you talked about pulling down the dairy factory, right? And for those at home that don't know, there was a dairy factory there. They were allowed to use it, but also, as Herbie said, what they could take away, they could use again, and those are the bones now of Apakura. So that's the uniqueness, you know, the call it the grassroots part of Te Wānanga Aotearoa. Use what you need, use what you can, and what you're given. But what was it about carving? Did you fellas want to do carving, or that's what you had to do, or else you're back on the tennis court?
It's nothing. I didn't even want to be Māori, to be honest. You know, and came into this. It's like, wow. And I wanted to join the army. That's what I wanted to do. And I still tried while I was still on the course here. But you know, I ended up staying there for 5 years and about 10 months. Still didn't think I had the gift, and ended up on a solo benefit with my kids down in Wellington, and you know, had 6 hours to spare, so I thought, they provided us with a couple of sets of chisels. I thought, man, I got some chisels, also I need some wood, so I went and scored me some wood, and away I went. You know, I had to figure it all out myself. Yeah, and I created this pari because I've had a thing with pari, things with holes in it, and and I thought, man, I got it. I was just so rapt, and it's put me on my pathway I am today. You know, I just went out and, you know, I was around Ricky Manuel from down the South Island, Ngāti Parei. So he showed me a lot of, you know, his skills pertaining to this craft. So he's still learning today. Just love it now.
Beautiful. What about you two? What were?
I didn't want to be on the dull side. I just went and, you know, jumped in there and helped the whole Paki, because Paki helped me out. You know, coming to the courts and getting me back on the right track, and then Vince Leonard, you know, he was one of the big movers for me, because he was right on our side, just about our same age group too. Like, I was 18 when I first come here and jumped in there, but me never regret the old carving side of it now, bro.
Yeah,
it's one thing I love doing. I don't do it as much as the pros do, but still got to do a little bit of it.
Kia ora. What about you, Darren? You must have been the loudest in the class.
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, the thing was, when we left, when we got there, we had to share our chisels. Yeah, we had. Yeah, but the next crew that came after us, they got free chisels. We didn't.
That was those fellas. Got everything given me.
No. We stayed on.
So how did it go from pulling down the factory to then putting this together, this beautiful whare?
We pulled that factory down, and then they built that kōkiri. Used all the framing and that to make that building. That's that little carving centre that they are now.
Yep.
And then we all went in there, and then Mac Bell and they just got us into carving, and then Vince Leonard come in, and he was the promoter of the carving, him and Paki. Paki was the boss, but Vince, he was the one that showed us everything.
Yeah, he was right there with us.
What were as
But there was another place we were at. Wasn't it Rakes Ave? Yeah. Rickett Road. Yeah.
I think that's where we actually started the carving, bro.
It was in a little building.
True.
Yeah, down by Hazelmere,
Yeah.
But you know, like Herbie says, he was here 80. He was one of the oldest. He's losing a bit of his marbles. I got a spare one of them. I can't have one of them marbles. Paki and them were carving it down at the factory. So we were there for quite a a while. It used to be the Te Aomori work schemes or something before it became the Waipa Kōkiri, I think, ended up here.
Yep.
And then we moved from down there because we had to vacate it, and that's when we started renovating all those. And then we ended up at Rickett Road, and then we came here when it was just a shell. So we had quite a few maraes on the go at the same time. You know, we were doing one down on Moko,
Wow.
sort of coinciding, I think. I don't know.
Manioro? Was it Manioro?
Manioro, yeah. So I think it was about the funding. See, we didn't know I didn't anyway know what was happening in the back until I sort of got a bit older and started work. I worked for Te Wānanga Aotearoa, and I started learning about the pūrākau, what they were doing for us too.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was just amazed, about them, having to mortgage their whare, and I thought, wow. And what it turned out, and just seeing the growth of it just explode really when it became Te Wānanga Aotearoa, and just all the students, from up and down the country as well. So I just saw it just blossom, from where we stood. We were like the first module, then the weavers came, then the plumbers, and then the builders and small motors, and then we had a real class. Yeah, I wish I had jumped in there. But
We all jumped in there, but we did it
I jumped
young
out.
and dumb.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you don't see too far past your nose at that age, eh? So,
18, bro.
yeah. Not understanding...
Had a small nose.
not understanding what's actually... Well, how big, what you're a part of, because you're 18, but the amount of mahi that those people like Rongo and all them are doing in the background, so you can get to a place to create some skills or actually find out about yourself, who you are, eh? Who you are. So what about the carving? Was it like wax on, wax off, or just sweeping or sharpening, or did you just get put straight into, right, do this cut? Was it like that, or was it...
Like I've been tutoring for Kairo for quite a while, and just tell my students, how lucky they are, because, we were digging these holes for a few years before we moved on to the next section.
Digging holes.
We just dug holes.
There's heaps of holes.
But I see how their system runs, so they had us as the novice come and dug holes, and then you had the next ones that sort of come from the institution, who could lower and round the figures. And then you had the likes of Paki and Vince, who could do all the whakare.
Yep.
So that was their system. And then when the school kids come, they jumped on the holes, and we moved up to the next level. They started rounding and lowering levels. And as we sort of moved on, and we started doing whakare. So I know Kiriti knows this one, when they do the tarataraka, and you got those little notches.
Yep.
So my job was to pull out those little notches, which is, but it meant a lot to me, because now I'm on the whakare.
Yeah.
I have to look at my mates and go,
Promoted, but
And you go, that hole's not deep enough, baby.
so there was a buzz, to get to that level, because it meant that you were qualifying, I suppose, in my head anyway, but that was a buzz.
Yeah. Like yourself, same thing, Darren? Or?
Yeah, no, it was a change, a big change for me. I was getting in trouble with the law. Paki just helped us out, just like that. No, it changed my whole life.
still gets in trouble too.
Yeah. Well, it's not your fault, you're heke. Me ana ki te whānau heke. O tēnei wā. Me ana ki te whānau. Yeah. In all this stuff, in your, because you're doing mahi at a sort of a small level of thinking, and he tohunga rātou, he tohunga pakima, they know enough that you need to know to do it, to move up to another part, and then in reflection you actually go, oh, yeah, we've just learnt all that. Is that how you realised it later, or did you get put onto your own pieces later on?
Oh, we just, he did, bro. Once you finished doing the holes in it, and then you got to do a bit of rounding, over the shoulders and that, just so that you knew how the wood moved and how much you had to take off and that. And then, we went into the painting side of it, the tuku panels, and we had to do it, bro, just to, be better ourselves.
Yeah, boy.
Was there like a moment for all of you where you were here at the, what was it called then, Waipa Kōkiri Centre, where you felt like they could see your guys' potential instead of being those people just on one of those courses?
Once that fella took his hands out of his pocket, they saw there was potential, bro. There was always potential in us, bro. Hey, bro. In Māoris, bro, Māoris are octopuses, bro. They can do whatever they like, but they just got to put their mind to it, bro. If they don't put their mind to it, well, they're not going to go and succeed, bro. But if you do, like this is like digging a hole, bro. If you can smack a hole, and get it to the right level that it's meant to be, well, you'll achieve that, And then when you go to the rounding side of it, well, if you went wrong from rounding, bro, you had to glue it, and then out of there, back to the hole. Because there's a lot of glue in here, bro, that you can't really see. Well, you know where it is because Donald did it wrong, so... Nah, but you just learned, bro, that if when you go and take the shoulder off, you just stand back, have a look. Nah, it needs a little bit more. Stand back, have a look. And that's the way Vince, Lewis, Kirite, he was one of them. Yeah. That helped us right out there.
Lewis Pairata, ne?
Lewis Pairata, bro.
Yeah. And taking that symbolism from a rākau, the tohunga seeing it in the forest, in the Te Wānanga Tāne and seeing, there's something in this. So, like you fellas heard, these young tōtara mahuri and them bringing the potential out of you by, carving your psyche, your mātauranga, your whakaro about yourselves. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I think the story that Paki told me, and I've heard from others as well, is that when he left here and went to Tāmaki to Kāwta University, is that he wished he had have taken us.
Yep.
I think because we were teachable, we were like wanting to learn, whereas he took all those fellas from the institution who are our legends today. They were different kettle of fish compared to us, still fresh, but wanting to learn. And so...
they would have had their ways of learning, thinking about the likes of Uncle Gordon Toy and all them. They were young, he had 2 legs then.
You're going to give me a trouble.
3, but you're going to cut mine off now.
All of those fellas, who's our rangatiras and whakairo. So that was a cool story, and just to hear from others, of their, what they had heard too, their Paki wanted. Like I heard it from Darren this morning, I've heard it from Herb as well. Lloyd's Pairata's told me the same story, so yeah. So just listening to your story, I think he did want to promote us, and just going off what David was talking about a PP scheme, this was only 6 months, but they kept rolling us over. So I was here for like 5 years and 10 months, like I said. So that's, there must be something in it, otherwise they would have chopped us. So.
Well, what made you stick around though?
The money, I think. I don't know, there was some good money, and we were contracted as well, so from, I think, Aotearoa, so that was amazing that we get to carve, something from Te Arawa, when I know that the guns come from there, but...
Cool.
I forget the name of that marae, but, we were doing like 7 to 7, daily, I think it was just the weekends we would have off. And
we even used to go and stay over there, when we used to go to Wanganui, the Pole and Wanganui Library. You used to stay over there, work every day of the week, all Paki. Just to hurry up and finish it, bro?
Yeah, because we were working with the other crew down there,
Yeah.
Parametric.
Parametric,
Another coastie.
So what are some of the, we see the brilliant finish of your mahi? What are some of the funny stories like, well, that wasn't meant to be there? Or,
I've heard something's upside down.
Heaps they burnt down their kiriti, bro.
We've got a humble man, Kiriti Rei Tangata, he's in the crowd. He was a part of Hotiroa, the Pau Hotiroa. Yeah.
But we really couldn't do anything wrong, because we, Paki was a down to earth fella, but if you got done something wrong, he'll tell you done it wrong, And then you got Vince. Vince is from Rotorua, taught. He got taught over there. Those are the perfectionists. And you really couldn't do anything wrong, bro, unless the wood was rotten. And then that's where the gluing came in and fiberglassing and all that stuff went down. But we had the primo as tutors, bro. That they just you couldn't do anything wrong.
So it's sort of been under the guise of, just like with the Wānanga, Te Wānanga Aotearoa, having the right kaiako. You can't do any wrong because you're actually guided well enough. You're in that ahurutanga, kaitiakitanga, some of our takepu that we use here at Te Wānanga Aotearoa. What was your favourite cut?
With the chainsaw.
I've seen an interview with Paki when he's in his own workshop down in Harataunga, Kennedy's Bay, and he said, what's your favourite tool? And they think everyone's thinking, toki, and he goes, chainsaw.
Chainsaw,
Must
bro.
be the most fun piece of machinery to work with. Yeah. What about the koe, Tom?
Toki was mine.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, cut myself a couple of times. But yeah.
Who didn't?
It's a skill, eh?
They're lying if they said they don't, bro. Everyone got cut.
Yeah, which I don't see much of today other than those, who are 50 plus.
Yep.
Still using the toki.
Yeah. Oh, I think the good ones, man, and they got jandals on.
Jandals, man.
But missing toes, isn't he? Yeah. Like I see Mike Matchett whacking away at his stuff and some of the other covers, and they just got jandals on.
Yeah.
Knowing where to throw it. Yeah. But your, what was your favourite cut or part, Darren?
Yeah, I didn't mind anything.
Follow the leader, brother.
It was on tools. It was on tools.
Cut lunch, I think.
How does your experience of being tauira here shape who you are today professionally and however?
Oh, yeah. For me, the way I was taught is how I teach my students. With compassion as well, knowing that, they're still at the same. They still got their hands in their pocket, and then just having that empathy for letting them grow at their own pace. Yeah, so that's what I take away.
Kia manawa nui, patience. Pēa kōrua.
Yeah, well, it was just that learning stage where I enjoyed the most, learning everything.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Paki and me, bro, we would have still been in jail, but I know even when I left here, I still went back to jail, but that's just part of life that you're learning, bro. But yeah, met my partner and we still got a few little bends in the corner, but yeah, we going forward.
Yeah, kia ora.
Still do our little bit of carving and not as good as these fellas do.
Yeah, just to let you know, I put myself on this chair purposely because the influences that these fellas still have on me, I stay on the right road.
So straight home after this?
Yeah, straight home.
Don't swap numbers. Yeah. And where are you now? And still working on whare or pieces at home and.
Oh, I just did little 21st keys and all that stuff now, just with my own family. Other than that, I'm a logging truck driver, bro. Me and my partner bought some logging trucks and go hard on that.
Yeah, kia ora.
Haven't been back to jail for fucking yonkies though, but yeah. Which is a good side, bro?
Yeah. Staying on the road. Yeah. Darren, you still on the tools?
Yeah, I just have a little tutu here and there, but Nah, mainly just mahi now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I drive a truck too. So.
Yeah,
Oh,
kia ora.
okay.
Still working with wood, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I work for Te Wānanga Health in Hamilton, and I have a crew of 5. So yeah, just, you know, we work around mental health,
Kia ora.
drug addictions, so bringing the mauri to our whānau that are struggling out here. And, you know, it'd be cool that if we could roll them over like what happened to me, because they love it. Our courses are short.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we pick them up and then we pretty much drop them off.
Yeah.
You know, where they have nothing. They're back to where they started before they met us. And then, yeah, if we could just keep it going, that'll be amazing for our whānau. Because, I don't know, the properties and, you know, people just think it's just carving as whakairo, but there's a lot of properties involved in, you know, about the connections, the hononga, the pūrākau of where whakairo started. The hononga, you know, the whakawhanangatanga, the karakia, the kupu. You know, that's how I learned to run a centres, was here, learning about the different kupu, you know. I started learning about Māori words and just still didn't know, and probably sort of still don't know how to put a sentence together to, you know, that's what I want today is the reo.
Yeah.
You know, but whakairo has done that for me. It's put me,
Cool.
yeah, sort of back then when it was Matua Alan Anaru Collett.
Oh, yeah, Arana
Yeah,
Collett, yep.
Yeah, well, Tani Taylor was the first kaioko
Yep.
for the reo, and he wanted us to jump in, and I was going, oh, nah. And then we used to see him coming, Anaru, is it? Arana. Okay, so here comes Taha Māori. That's what we, because I think that was their first program, was called Taha Māori. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we sort of just got out of school, didn't want to go back to that sort of desk environment. That was for me anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still haven't liked that environment, so I haven't, you know, I've gone and done some courses, you know, but I want that quick fix. I want to go there for today and then come up in a
Fluid
case, but they still don't work.
Put it in the can.
But a lot of that comes down to the government too, bro. Hey, they've cut a lot of the old Māori funding to help our young fellas out in it. And, you know, you can only get so far and then it stops.
Yep.
Whereas the government, if they carried that on and helped our Māori people out and islanders, whatever they reach their own, bro, it's, you know, it's pretty hard funding it, bro, because it costs it. Like with our forestry, you know, $600 just to learn how to use a chainsaw, and you get a ticket, but he's got $600 for just a little piece of paper.
Yeah.
Same as Māori carving and that. If the government was there and helped us out, bro, there'll be a lot of Māoris that will be willing to go to work, but a lot of our Māoris need a good kick up their backside too, bro. They need to get off break that cycle. They have to break that cycle of being on the dole, bro. Hey, there's plenty of work out there now, but they want to be on the dole and do nothing. And a lot of things I could say they do, but not on this thing either.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have programs like social work and stuff at Te Wānanga, Aotearoa, to help our whānau do that. And it's interesting you say that about the funding. You know, you said 5 years. How long were you in the program? 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
5 years for youth, you know, youth program, PEP. Was it a PEP?
Us ourselves or the ones he's doing?
Well, the one you just mentioned, like a 5-year one.
Yeah, it was more job.
More job, but that's unheard of now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know of any programs for youth, or say they might call them at-risk youth for 5 years where there's funding for such things. So, tika tau. Have you got any more pātai?
Not right now.
We've only got about 5 minutes left, but I hear a lot of giggling. So there must be some pātai in the audience. E pātai koutou?
Hey, me re te whala, because he's sitting by himself.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
What was tell us about the kōwhaiwhai. So you did painting as well. Did you use stencils or one person do the outline and you come through? But you're on red, you're on black, and was it like that?
No.
We use stencils. Hey, we use the stencils, but when Paki said that was yours, you started it from the beginning and you ended it at the end, bro. You weren't allowed to just jump over there and then jump to the next one. We all... That's yours.
Vince, he created them, but with the guidance of Paki telling him about the stories that he wanted. And Herbie, me and Herbie did quite a lot of these hikis. Yeah, I don't know why.
Because you're not sitting over here.
I learned how to do kōwhaiwhai through doing all these paintings.
What about the wood? Did you acquire the wood via... Did you have to go and get the wood too, or was it all stacked for you?
No, coming on trucks, bro. Already cut up in slabs. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
What was the timber? Is it all native or... But this and that? I know that's custom up there.
Tōtara, bro.
Yeah.
That's the most of it, eh? And PVA glue.
PVA.
We use quite a lot of different, because this is not the only project that we did, there's others that we have done, and different harake. I think some harake that I'm experimenting that didn't work out. I think there was one in particular over in Kawhia, that it rotted. I remember a purple wood.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it was called, but it was different and it was quite white, but when you started hacking into it, you could see the purple coming through.
Oh, wow.
Cool. If you could go back 40 years ago, how old were you, 20, and tell your younger self something to help you on your learning journey back then, what would it be? What would you do differently?
I suppose for me it was about learning the pūrākau. Although Paki and Vince, they would tell us the stories, I'm a slow learner and a fast forgetter. Still,
That's me.
still, that's what I want to obtain the mātauranga now, to coincide with what I'm putting on the, especially in depth,
Yeah.
like the mark kōpua.
Kōpua. Yeah.
That sort of knowledge,
Yeah. Yeah, ora.
What about you, Darren? What would you tell your younger self?
Stay out of trouble.
That doesn't work. I would have listened to myself if I told me that.
Well, I remember one time we had to go to the bush to get the girls. Kia? Yeah, Paki showed us how to gather that. That was awesome.
Which hours do we used to come with us?
Where did we do that? Taringa?
Taringa now at Mōkauri.
It was good.
Mokau then.
Oh.
Mōkau out Aotearoa there.
Oh.
Past Piopio.
What about you? What would you tell your younger self?
I wish I just carried this on, bro. Seeing all these fellas, all the other bros, they got their little workshops going in there. I'm primo, man. Actually jealous, because we were all up there. I'm only doing little stuff to what they're doing now, but I wish I carried it on, bro. I could have taken it back home and done started something down there, because there's no carvers. There's heaps of whānau up new carvers out there, but no one actually down home doing that.
Yeah. Fill that gap, There's always a second chance.
Too old for that now, bro.
Time for that. Any more pātai? Any other pātai out there? Well, we know e hoa ma.
Yeah, I just take my head off to Paki, Vince, and Kiriti, and Lewis, bro, Mac Bell. All those fellas that were at the kōkiri in those days, we were getting in trouble, but and Rongo, they helped us get out of that taki, bro, and believed in us that we could do it. Even Ada and all them, Horoa, they were mean to us, bro. The woman side of it when we had to go over there and do the panels.
Poi. Oh, well. Mihi ana kia koutou katoa. I think the main thing to take away is how we invest in our future, our children, how we invest in ourselves via our own mātauranga. New knowledge is old knowledge. And even having ourselves believe that when there are solutions to be found, is to always go back into your own kōrero first. And a lot of times you find that the world is coming to indigenous iwi, putanoi te ao, looking for solutions.
We are the best, bro.
Yeah,
we are the best.
But also to be mindful that some are only there to take. Nō reira, chakina e rā kōrero. Oino, ka puritia ngā kōrero I tēnei wā. Mihi ana kia koutou katoa. Koutou, ngā ringa whao o Te Wānanga o Aotearoa. Ngā koutou te whare I whakatū. Ngā koutou I whakairo ai, I raranga ai. Mai nei ngā tukutuku, ngā tūmata kahuki. Mihi ana kia koutou katoa. No e hoa ma, mihi ana kia koutou. Tēnā rā koutou katoa. Hei kona.
Hei kona.